I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Harry Segal.
And welcome to this preview of Shrinking Trump.
This week we have on our show, George Conway is back, and he's bringing together his Anti-Psychopath to produce a new commercial and a letter in the New York Times that's really summarizing the work he's been doing for the past 5 months to bring to the public an awareness of Donald Trump's psychopathology and his decline in cognitive functioning, which happens to be something that John and I have been doing every week on this show. Right, John?
So this week we're going to be talking to George and looking at the anti-psychopath campaign to make the final argument to voters that Trump is psychiatrically and cognitively unfit. We've been struggling for years to get this message out to the public because it's necessary in order for us to save the republic. We're going to talk later with George Conway about the effort of the Anti-Psychopath. We've published a letter in the New York Times today, signed by 230 mental health professionals, and we put out a video that's going to be shown on cable news in swing states and beamed to Mar-a-Lago to try to get this message out with one last case before the American voters. Well, I'm very excited about our guest tonight. We're going to have George Conway on. He's now been our most frequent guest. This will be his third appearance. But the reason we're having him on tonight is the Anti-Psychopath PAC has initiated a national campaign, our last basically argument to the voters about Trump's being cognitively impaired and a dangerous malignant narcissist. I just want to say that George Conway has really been a stalwart in this movement. He has been trying to get the message out about Trump's psychiatric disorders and dangerousness really since 2017, 2018. And so this Anti-Psychopath PAC really is the culmination of all that work. And this campaign is sort of our last battle. With no further ado, let me introduce George. Hi, George.
Hi. How are you guys doing?
Good.
All right.
Welcome. Good to have you back.
So you're like the Alex Baldwin of this show. You're like the Alex. You've hosted Saturday Night Live now more times than any other celebrity.
I know, but I never get a script. I don't have a prompter. I don't have any jokes. But we'll figure out. We'll figure something out.
You're pretty funny on your own. Well,
okay.
So do you want to say something about this effort so people understand today? When people watch this, it'll be tomorrow because it streams on Friday. But today, Thursday, in the New York Times was a letter that I mostly wrote, but that we all worked on together, where we have 230 now mental health professionals who have signed this document, including Harry. And tell us something about how this initiative got started, this idea of trying to get this information before the public and the strategy that you're pursuing.
Well, I've been doing, I've been kind of banging this drum for a number of years because I think, there was, obviously there was the Bandy's group early on in the book and so on and so forth, but it never really got as much traction as I thought it should have gotten. I mean, when I started getting into this stuff and reading about it, it was like all of a sudden a whole array of lights went on, the light bulbs went on, because it was like, okay, now this all makes sense. These are set characteristics of a particular personality disorder type, of types, and it basically it basically explains all of his behavior, from the trivial to the criminal to his authoritarianism, to his everything about him. It just you understand everything about him. You understand how he can be manipulated but not controlled. You can understand things that are just sort of unfathomable to the lay mind, that you can basically have someone who is utterly and completely devoid of morality and conscience and remorse and empathy and all those things that kind of make us civil to each other and decent and law-abiding citizens as much as we can. And so once I understood that, I was like, okay, I want to help explain why this makes him unfit for office, and I combined what I had read from like people like you all, and my some understanding of what the framers intended the president to be under the Constitution, and put it together. I wrote that piece in the Atlantic 5 years ago, but it never really took. I mean, it took. I think it changed the discussion in elite circles because it was in the Atlantic, and I think the media in Washington kind of focused on it a lot, but privately. But it never, not enough of it sank into the public domain, and I still think not enough of it has sunk into the public domain, because we talk about him being weird, and we talk about him being unhinged, and it's like, okay, but what I'd like it to be more particular and more explanatory about why why his weirdness and unhinged nature makes it dangerous. I mean, for him to be president. And I guess it should be apparent that you really don't want an unstable person who talks about Hannibal Lecter and Arnold Palmer's member and Putter or whatever to talk, to have control over the world's second largest arsenal of nuclear weapons. I mean, it should be without a given, but I really do think it has such explanatory power that more people should understand the explanation. And so, that was one of the purposes of the Anti-Psychopath PAC. Yeah. And, there's no better people to really explain it. I mean, I can do what I want with my little placards with the DSM criteria, but, again, you guys are the experts. And so I want to put you guys front and center. Right. And it's time for that. And that's what we did through this ad. And that's how we did these two ads, the newspaper ad and the video ad. And you guys did a fabulous job in the video ad, and also with the writing of the letter.
Oh, thank you. Well, why don't we take a look at the letter? It's a little bit long, but we're going to read the whole thing. So this is what was published in the New York Times. Actually, this is an earlier draft. I think the number is now 230. An open letter from 201 mental health professionals on Donald Trump's mental state.
As mental health professionals, we have an ethical duty to warn the public that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. His untreatable severe personality disorder, malignant narcissism, makes him deceitful, destructive, deluded, and dangerous. In short, grossly unfit for leadership.
Trump exhibits behavior that meet the American Psychiatric Association's diagnostic and statistical manual criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and paranoid personality disorder, all made worse by his intense sadism, a toxic combination called malignant narcissism. This psychological type was first identified by Erich Fromm to explain the psychology of history's most evil dictators, like the one he fled in 1933. Detractors object that we mental health professionals cannot render such a diagnosis without first examining the patient, citing the Goldwater rule. We believe that we have a more overriding ethical duty to warn the public about the dire danger of this individual poses. History has taught us that in such circumstances, saying nothing is never the more ethical choice.
In addition, since the Goldwater rule was written, the field has adopted the DSM diagnostic system, which relies exclusively on, quote, observable behavioral criteria, unquote. For many years, we've all observed thousands of hours of Trump's behavior, reinforced by the observations of dozens of informants who have interacted with him personally. Using the DSM-5, it's not difficult to see Trump meets the behavioral criteria for antisocial personality disorder, for example. One doesn't even need to be a clinician to see Trump shows a lifetime pattern of failure to conform to social norms and laws, repeated lying, reckless disregard for the safety of others, irritability, impulsivity, irresponsibility, and lack of remorse. Because of their sadism, malignant narcissists perversely revel in their destructive power and relish inflicting humiliation and suffering on others, especially those they see as enemies. For example, according to people in the White House, during the January 6th insurrection, Trump watched the violence he unleashed for 3 hours on TV with glee, watching his favorite parts over and over on rewind.
To make matters worse, Trump appears to be showing signs of cognitive decline that urgently cry out for a full neurological workup, including an MRI and neuropsychological testing. These symptoms include a dramatic decrease in verbal fluency, tangential thinking, diminished vocabulary, overuse of superlatives and filler words, perseveration, confabulation, phonemic paraphasias, semantic paraphasias, confusing people, not just names, as well as exhibiting deteriorating judgment, impulse control, and motor functioning, including a wide-based gait. We suspect the result of such an evaluation, which we will never see, would be disqualifying. If Trump does have organically based cognitive decline, as we suspect, it will only get worse over time, grossly degrading his already impaired judgment, impulse control, memory, attention, reality testing, and capacity to process information, while dramatically exacerbating the symptoms of his toxic personality disorder. People suffering with mental illness are no more likely to be dangerous than anyone else in the general population. Malignant narcissism is the very rare exception. Without question, malignant narcissists have been history's most grandiose, paranoid, and murderous leaders. Inevitably, they escalate until they are completely out of control and ultimately destroy themselves and the nations they lead. As mental health professionals, we feel a desperate duty to warn our fellow citizens of this imminent catastrophic public danger before it's too late. So it was a long letter, but we felt like we really had to get in both the description of his personality disorder, his cognitive
decline. You got
decline.
everything in there. Yeah, you got everything in there. It was amazing.
And so this was in the New York Times today. Was it a full-page ad, you guys?
Yeah, it was a full-page ad. I wish I had the copy of it with me, but I don't. But I posted a picture of it on my Twitter feed and on the PAC's Twitter feed. We posted a web version that's easier to read, and we posted the signatory list.
Oh, great!
Really, thank you guys. It really is a tremendous contribution, and God bless you for putting it together and getting people to sign it.
Well, and God bless you for helping to raise the money so that we could get it in front of the public.
Yeah,
so it's been a great collaboration.
Yeah, great. And then you have the video ad, right? We haven't seen the video ad.
Should we see? Let's see the video ad.
To understand why Donald Trump is unfit for office, understand why Trump is a danger to the Republic, you must understand that he is a malignant narcissist.
Malignant narcissists exhibit a grandiose sense of self-importance, derive pleasure from causing harm, and are incapable of caring about other people's feelings.
This explains Donald Trump's pathological lying, his misogyny, his admiration for dictators, and his criminal behavior.
Trump is incapable of caring about you, our country, and the Constitution that a president swears to faithfully execute. He's only capable of caring about himself.
That is why Donald Trump is unfit for office.
This is why he's a danger to the Republic.
Donald Trump has no choice but to be a malignant narcissist.
But we have the choice.
We can choose
whether or not to put a malignant narcissist in the White House again.
Anti-Psychopath PAC Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Doesn't look Harry.
Bravo, guys! Bravo. He did.
Oh,
you guys.
thank you.
You guys all have great voices too. It was really. It really came out nicely.
Thank you. Well, your
nobody had some kind of nobody had any like squeaky voices that we had. It was great. Perfect. Guys all have good radio, TV voices. All of you.
Well, your production guy Barry was terrific.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
And
Barry's a hero.
He recorded us over and over and over again to get exactly.
Barry's a perfectionist. Let me tell you, he did
even enough monkeys reading a script enough times. One of them will sound Twitter worthy.
It was so great, so great, so great.
Right.
And you're gonna, he's now Donald Trump is going to get to see your smiling faces because he doesn't seem to, he's not leaving Florida all that much. I mean, he's out a couple days a week. And he was home the other day. He'll probably be home again. He'll get to see you. We were running these ads at Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster if he goes back up there. And so he's going to know you guys on a first name basis. So you should be pleased.
So you're telling me that we're going to be high on the enemies list? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, we'll all we're going to have our own block in Guantanamo, right? Okay. All right. No, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well,
we're going to vote.
Obviously, So obviously we're doing this to raise awareness about Trump's dangerous psychopathology, but overall, it really seems like the news has been breaking our way. I think you would agree about this, right? Maybe talk about this phenomena. We were saying we wish we'd come out with this maybe a week earlier because it seemed like there was like a critical inflection point where suddenly, and I think the reason for this is A, he's getting worse and more flagrant. B, Kamala is commenting on it. And so by her commenting on it, the press has to comment on it, right? That's the whole point. They have to report on what she talks about.
Right. She's forcing them to do it, which is great. It started off early on with weird. Now she's using the word unhinged. She's basically using, words that unbalanced. She's using words that connote.
Unstable.
She's not using unstable. She's using connotes that evidence, words that connote psychological problems. And I can't. That's a big step because people were afraid to do that for a very long time. I think it's wise for them not to try to use the technical terms because you get bogged down in that, and you get into you get into a lot of stuff that we are able to get into. But I hope to think that we helped set the table for that, and hope that in the end of the day, we were able to create some running room for them to do that. And I think the person who deserves the most credit isn't on this screen. I think the person who deserves the most credit is Donald J. Trump for being himself and being more of himself than ever before, and continuing, from Hannibal Lecter to the AI crowds to Arnold Palmer's thing, and all of the crazy stuff that he's been saying lately, and denying that he has a personality, or admitting actually that he has a personality defect. All of the craziness and the incoherence, has itself forced the media to talk about, well, is he really, they don't like to get into whether or not he was this bad to begin with or bad to begin with and has these personality disorders. But since they went wild on Joe Biden for a few weeks on a lot less, frankly, evidence, it's great to see mainstream outlets like the New York Times did a whole spread in a Sunday paper about Donald Trump. Is he losing it? And yes, he is. The answer, anybody can see it if they choose to see it. You have Fox News turning the channel and switching over to even a Kamala Harris rally, so they don't show how crazy he was. Like the night of when he talked about Arnold Palmer's penis. That's what they did. They switched to Kamala Harris, so they talk about her instead of talking about how crazy he is. And, and again, the campaign is talking about it, at least in very, very general terms.
And they're talking about his cognitive decline too. They're also talking about his cognitive decline. The campaign.
It's easier to understand because we see it in, our own relatives.
Exactly.
People who have dealt with an elderly and infirm individual know how quickly somebody can go south, and some of their, and particularly people who have not necessarily the most pleasant personality traits can go really, really south very, very quickly, and their negative personality traits tend to be enhanced and drawn out. So, it's a scary thing. It should be a scary thing to most Americans, and I also think it's an exhausting thing, because we've been listening to him for years.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, there are a number of things that are going to lead to him losing this election. And I think basically, I've said this. I know you've heard me say this, John, for quite some time. If the election's about him, it's just basic politics. If this election's about him, like he's the incumbent, or the way it was about him in 2020 and the way it was about Hillary in 2016, whoever this election is about is going to lose the election.
Yeah.
And what we see the Kamala Harris campaign doing over the past couple of weeks is they are now turning back to him.
Yes.
And basically making him the issue. And at the same time, people are excited about her. People are terrified of him. And I'm glad, people are freaking out at the Democrats being freaked out, and that oh my God, they're scared of losing, and now they're going to lose. Is he going to lose? Is he going to win? No, I don't view it that way. It's like the more fear is one of the best human motivators. I think, doctors, you would agree. And people should be fearful of what could happen in a new Trump administration. And I think that's motivating the right people to show up at the polls. Meanwhile, I don't think his base is excited about it anymore. I mean, they like him because he's, they liked him because he's different. They like him because, he was entertaining. They like him because he provokes the other side, and he just doesn't do that well anymore. It's just not. He's a joke. It's just, we've been seeing it. We've seen the rerun too many times, and he's getting harder and harder to defend with his clear deterioration, his cognitive deterioration. It's like, it takes so much effort, so much cognitive dissonance to be a Trump supporter. And I think I think he and that movement are out of gas, and that's why I could be wrong. I've been wrong before about elections, and I certainly hope I'm not wrong about this one, but I could be wrong. But I think that gives her the advantage here in this home stretch. That said, we're going to wake up on November 6th or 7th or 8th or whenever it is that the final call is made by the networks, and we're going to wake up and say, how the hell did 75 million people vote for this guy still? And, that raises a lot of questions that I think we need to think about going forward in the future about, our public discussion and about the way people receive, about the information ecosystem we reside in the modern era, and frankly, the mental health of the country.
I've noticed, I'm, as you know, I live up in Ithaca, New York, which is, as one bumper sticker says, it's 15 square miles surrounded by reality. So if you drive out, 20 minutes out of town, you're in upstate New York, which is Trump country. And in the last couple of cycles, there have been a lot of Trump signs. This time I counted, I have a little place out in the country about an hour outside of Ithaca. I counted 5 Trump signs and 3 Harris signs. And I saw a number of people who had the signs for representatives and for senator, but not putting the presidential candidate out. And I have a colleague in North Carolina who's been seeing the same thing. So we're starting to have a very savvy electorate, who are thinking about ticket splitting.
I think that the Trumpers are exhausted. Mm-hmm. And I think the things that are going to put this election away, again, the polls are based upon assumptions that pollsters make about who's actually going to turn out to vote. And those assumptions they use historical assumptions based on what happened in the last election or the prior elections or some blend of those. And every election is different. There's going to be something that we're going to see, at 8:00 on election night before they start calling states, and they say exit polls show that women were the most highly motivated. Exit polls show that 10% of Republicans voted for Kamala Harris. Things like that are actually going to give us clues about what's different about this race, what's different about this election, because every election is a little different, and some elections are really different. I think this one has the potential to be really different than some of the past elections, because I think, I think there's a bunch of things going on. I think he particularly offends women, not just because he's a sexual abuser, but because of the overturning of Roe. And I think there are a lot of Republicans who, can't get over January 6th. And, I met some of them out in Pennsylvania at the Kamala Harris rally she held with a lot of Republican public officials.
Oh, were you, George, wait, George, stop. Were you there at Washington's Crossing?
Yes, I was. And, I was. And, I actually met somebody. It was funny. I was sitting there, and right next to me was a psychiatrist from southeastern Pennsylvania who was a former Republican. Republicans were ours, and I got her to sign the letter.
Good man.
So it was pretty good. It was like, it was worth the trip up there. There you go. I mean, I'm optimistic. Every time I hear that the Democrats are scared, I think that's great. I know that's perverse, but I do think, I do think the fear is an important motivator here and critical, because I think there's just so much at stake here.
All right, folks, if you want to see the rest of the show, and there's a lot of great stuff in it, be sure to check us out. We're on the Really American Network. We're also on Spotify and Apple Music. Search for us in any search engine for Shrinking Trump. Our new episode always drops on Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tell your friends, but we hope to see you then.
Bye-bye.